So like they said, hi, my name is Dani Lowder. I turned it on. And I graduated in Beckman's class of 2016. And so first, I really want to start off by showing you a picture. So this is from my senior picnic, so about September 2015. And it's really important to me because about an hour and a half after this picture, I had one of the worst, if not the worst, in a series of very, very many and very, very bad anxiety attacks. But just looking at this picture, you would have no idea, right? Because I'm sitting there with all my friends, I'm smiling, I look super excited, I'm like, I'm a senior, it's super great, graduating, woohoo. But that's not always how things work out. So a little bit after this picture was taken, I went to cross-country practice. Go cross-country. And we were supposed to run 10 miles, which like back then was just like, oh, just a 10-miler, no biggie. And even before I started running, I could feel the anxiety coming on, and I could feel my breathing start to hitch, and I could feel tears start coming like to my eyes, but I was able to hold them back, and I started feeling lightheaded, and I started feeling my heart rate went up. And I started fiddling with my watch that I wore on my left hand, which was great because if I didn't have a watch on, I would do this. And at a couple of points when my anxiety was really bad, I would rub the skin like raw from my finger. And so I started running, and I made it maybe a quarter of a mile. I was really lucky. One of my best friends was with me the entire time. She's like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And I couldn't do it. And so I turned around, and I started bawling and just lapsed into this anxiety attack and was running back to this park. And while I was running back, I almost ran straight into my coach. And I don't know when, but a couple weeks later, he told me that when he saw my expression, he genuinely believed that someone had died. And you know, maybe he was right. Maybe he had noticed that there was a part of me, a very big part of me, that was maybe surviving, but not living. That this girl who was varsity cross country and yearbook editor and straight A's and had a job at CBK and was applying to colleges was not okay. And that was one of the first times that I was really forced to confront what was going on in my life and the choices I was making and how that was having an impact on my mental health. And he told me a couple of really important things on that day and the following days. And first and foremost, it was, there's nothing wrong with you. You're okay, you're gonna be okay, and I believe you. And I believe that what you're going through is valid and not something to be ashamed of. But more importantly, he told me that I did not owe it to anyone to be perfect, but I owed it to myself to be okay. And that was so valid because I had done this whole thing where most of the people in my life had absolutely no idea that almost every day I was absolutely falling apart. I was so good at hiding it. Same for a couple of my closest friends and my family who didn't even know what was going on because I was so afraid of really letting them know what was happening in my life. And so he told me, hey, you know what? This is gonna be okay, we're gonna get through this. And that's when I started making probably the most important transition in my life. And that was a transition from going through my day pretending I didn't struggle with mental health to living my life knowing that I had mental illnesses in the forms of anxiety and depression, to the point where I couldn't go through the days. If I answered a question wrong in class, I would start crying and falling into anxiety attack. I couldn't interact with my peers. And that made all the difference. That decision to accept what I was going through as valid and learn to live with it rather than conceal it. So I started making those decisions, and I started learning how to control my anxiety instead of pretending it wasn't a problem. And I started telling myself, like, hey, I'm struggling, this is a really bad day, but you know what? It's just a day. And if all I do today is just continue going, that's okay, and that's enough. Which was great. And I want to kind of put a disclaimer that just because I was able to control it better did not mean that it ended entirely. I still struggle with mental health, I still have anxiety attacks, I still sometimes get depressed, but it's okay because I've learned to live with that and I've learned to accept it. And one of my biggest things, I was really, really scared that when I went to college, which I was about to do, all of the progress that I had made over that time period between September of my senior year to when I graduated would be gone. But I was really, really lucky because I was able to, through the strength of my friends, through the strength of my peers, through the strength of my teachers, really kind of embody a stronger, positive mental attitude. And so first and foremost, I'm here to tell you that you're at one point in your journey, and it's a difficult part in your journey, but you can take your weaknesses, your greatest weaknesses, and turn them into strengths. because all of you, every single one of you, is significantly stronger than you believe. So that's what I decided to do. I decided to take this mental health problem that I was facing and really embody it and turn it into something more powerful. So I decided to kind of spread the love, and I started noticing some of my friends, some of the girls on my cross-country team struggling. And I did everything possible to make sure that they felt supported, that they felt loved, and that they felt like they weren't alone in a way that I didn't, because nobody at any high school really talks about mental health to the amount that they should. They don't talk about how common it is. They don't talk about how there should be no stigma. They don't talk about how you can live with it and you're going to be okay. So I did that, and I ended up getting into UCLA, best public school in the world right now, just saying. And I absolutely love UCLA, and I was really scared about that transition, because I'm like, what am I going to do? I've made so much progress. Is it all going to go to waste? But it didn't, because I was like, you know what? No, we're going to take this and we're going to move it and put it into something more powerful. So I got really, really involved with health advocacy on campus, intending it to be more mental health advocacy focused, but then you know what? Stuff happens. So I ended up doing a lot of birth control accessibility research on my campus, which led to the creation of the first ever women's health brochure that is now found in our on-campus healthcare facility. And that led to me getting invited to go on a lobby trip to Washington, D.C. to meet with senators and representatives about student issues, which led to me this year going on another trip to DC and actually leading a group of some of the most intelligent, diverse students, 12 students I planned to Washington, D.C. once again, to talk about student issues, to talk about Title IX, to talk about immigration, to talk about affordability. And those achievements also led to me getting to go meet Senator Kamala Harris and march alongside her in the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade, where I got to see the real impact that low-income communities have on health disparity. And that also just keeps on going, because my passion for mental health led me to want to help my peers in a more tangible way on my campus. So I became an undergraduate representative for both our on-campus healthcare facility and our counseling and psychological services, where I get to help make decisions about what our healthcare is going to look at and make sure that my peers have access to that healthcare and can get the support that they need, even if they don't know that they need it. And most importantly, I have surrounded myself with people who share my struggles, who understand my struggles, and who love me through my struggles, and who I love through the same way. And so to kind of wrap that up, the reason that I wanted to talk about this, the reason that I wanted to tell you about how I transitioned into living with a mental illness, not just surviving with one, is because I believe that everyone can do the same. I believe that all of you, no matter what your struggles are strong and beautiful and powerful and not alone, and more than what you're struggling with, and more than everything you can ever achieve. You are at one point in your story, at one point in your journey, and if you can take that weakness, if you can take what you think your weakness to be and turn it into strength and funnel it into something more powerful, whether that be advocacy, whether that be love, whether that be education, you're going to be able to do some really, really amazing things. I fought like hell to get through all of that, and fighting like hell is what made me and was what will make all of you strong and who we are. This was my story, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all of yours. Thank you.